Hi, my name is Lauren Farr. I am creating this video for my second language acquisition course. This is for our midterm. I am to discuss how this course has contributed to me changing my views on my students whose first language is not English. So one of the first things that I found very interesting was that students whose first language is not English, so their L1 is not English, they should practice and speak and write and read in their native language at home. Now, before this course, I thought that they needed to do as much as possible in English. That they needed to read all the time in English, that they needed to write all the time in English, that they needed to speak English as much as possible so that they can continue to practice and become more fluent and get that experience in speaking English. But they explained how they need an understanding of the meanings in their own language before they learn it in English. And here, I'll give you an example. So, photosynthesis. Now that is a word that if a student gets and they don't understand photosynthesis in their own language, then how do you expect them to understand it in English? So having that understanding will help them provide an understanding for how to use the word in English. So if they understand photosynthesis in their native language and they are learning the word photosynthesis in English, you can provide them with their word in their native language, their L1, and they'll understand the meaning of it in their L2. But they need that vocabulary bank to understand it in their first language before they can apply it and understand it in their second language. The other thing that I was able to take away from this course is how languages are very similar to each other. There are quite a few that will, it's not always, but there's quite a few that have the same sentence structure, similar words, and the way they sound, the way they look, the way they're written. For example, in German, the word man is Mann, which, first off, sounds very similar. And second, they're spelt very similar. So in English, it's spelt M-A-N. And then in German, it's M-A-N-N. So it only is one letter off from being written the same way. Another example is in German, the word for water is Wasser, and in English, it's water. So they sound very, very similar. There's other words that are like that way, but I can't remember them right at this moment because I'm very nervous. But that's all right. Let's see here. What else? Diversifying lessons. So I always diversify my lessons. That is mostly because I'm a special ed teacher and I need to be able to reach out to all of my students and make sure they each have an opportunity to learn the concept that I am teaching the way they learn. Now, I never considered my students whose first language is not English to affect the way that they learn. And so I never really thought about including the students' culture and their native land into my lessons until this course. So providing examples of say I'm having trouble thinking of an example. All right, so say I'm giving a lesson on community roles, and I am trying to teach my students the different roles that create and make a community. You have doctors and teachers and police officers, and you have moms and dads, and you have nurses, and you have all of these different roles in the community. Now, if I provide them with pictures, say one is an Latin doctor, and give them an example of a Latin doctor, and then give them an example of a African American police officer, and provide different racials or community into my examples for a community role, it will help them relate to it. And when they can relate to it, it helps them remember it and recall it more. So I found that very interesting, and it's just one more technique that I can add to my lessons to make it more diversified for my students to learn. So for all of my students, it doesn't matter if they're English as a second language or not, it is very important to provide them with the most opportunities to apply what they have learned. So it's really good for them to read in partners, say one reads one page, the other one reads the other, because they can work with each other, and if they run across a word they don't know, they can sound it out together, break it apart. They can practice listening to the way the words are said, the way they're pronounced. Another way you can do is to have sentence stems and allow them to fill in the rest of it. So you'll have the beginning of the sentence, such as photosynthesis is when, and you leave a blank, and they fill in plants make their food. Or that's just an example. Or you can provide them with songs that help them understand the different word vocabulary. You can provide them with pictures. You can act it out. But all of these ways are including them and involving them to understand how the words are used and what the words mean in English, so that they can understand the concept that is being taught. Like photosynthesis. They need to know that photosynthesis is a word that means plants take sun, water, and air to make food. And the more that they're able to hear and understand other people saying these words in vocabulary, they understand the meaning, therefore, they understand how it is used. I feel like I'm being really repetitive now, and I just looked at the time, so I am well past the 5 minutes. I hope that this is sufficient enough for the midterm. I'm very nervous since I can't have my notes and I am drawing blanks on things that I have already learned, but I am grateful for this course and I hope to learn much more through the rest of the semester. Bye.